Hey guys, this is Marc Brunet with QBrush.com and welcome back to another video tutorial. So it's been a little while. I've been pretty busy, but I am back today with a coloring tutorial. So what we're going to be doing today more specifically is coloring with gradient maps. So I've been talking about this for quite a while, and I always tell people, I always recommend that people use this technique because it allows you to focus on very different things throughout the steps of doing a full painting. So you start with just line art, and then you move on to the grayscale, and then you only have to worry about values at that point, and then finally you switch to when you're done with your values, you switch to colors, and then you only have to worry about colors. So that would be that step where we're done with the values, and then we are starting to tackle the colors. So just to show you what we're at. So this is it. This is what we're going to be working off of. But first, I want to explain the actual process of using gradient maps. So what it is, let's say I have a sphere here, so I get like a nice range of values on this. What I do most of the time, so in this case, if I was a full painting, what I would do is I would select my lasso tool, and then you would select whatever you want to apply the gradient onto. So let's say it's I only want the gradient on half of this, something like that. Then I would select this thing, and once you have your selection, so you go down here, and then you go gradient map, and this is going to bring you this little panel here. So you just have to click on here, and then it brings you the gradient editor, and in here you'll have all the library that you've previously saved. So those are like a couple of the ones I have. They're not that great, but so we're gonna start off with a new one. So let's see, you can just click on any of these, and then you just delete like these little sliders here. These are the sliders that allow you to pick the colors. So you can have only 2 minimum, obviously, because it's a gradient. So what we're gonna do is start with the basics. So here is the darkest color. So you can see now I'm getting back something that's very similar to what I had. And what we're gonna be changing is adding a bunch of colors in between to make it a little bit more interesting. So let's do a green ball, or green. There you go. So most of the time, what I want to try with gradients, at least what I do, is never go completely white and never go completely black. So I'll always try to sort of have very dark color, but that has a little bit of tint of something. It just gives a lot more richness to the entire color. And same thing with the whites. Maybe something a little bit yellow. So it can be very bright, right? Very close to white, but not quite white. And so in this case, you can see my selection here. It created a mask. Whenever you have a selection and you click on gradient, whatever you have selected becomes a mask. And then you can select this using Control click. This, and you'll see my selection. So what this shows you here is that everything that I selected is actually getting the gradient, even the white in the background. So I probably don't want that. So what I could do here is I could just go back to my object, and with the selection, with the wand selected, the magic wand selected, just Alt and then click, and it'll deselect this thing, and then you go back to the mask, and then you can delete. Oops. You do Control Shift I on this, and then delete everything else. So now you can see, if I go back here to my gradient and change the white, everything that's outside of the ball, outside of the selection before, now suddenly doesn't get selected. So that's good. Now it's only constrained to the sphere because I tweaked my mask. So now that we have this as a base, so that's generally what I start with. So you start with 3 colors, but that's not enough. So we're never going to stop there, because most of the time, at least for most colors, there's some exceptions, like actually no, scratch that, there's no exception. It's always never go with 3 colors. 3 colors is just not enough. So what we're gonna do is always try to aim for around 5. 5 is a good number. So what you're gonna do is pop one here and pop another one here. So basically, you know, you try to have them at the same distance. And now, depending on your gradients and how you shaded your you know, your painting, you might want to move things around a little bit to make sure that, you know, it grabs the color a little bit better. But that's, you know, that comes later. The reason why I try to have 5 instead of 3 is because what happens is that between those two here, when you don't do this, Photoshop sort of mixes the color between the black and, or like whatever these colors are. And generally when you get towards the middle here, so you know, once, if you're close to the actual color that you selected, it shouldn't be that bad. But once you get like in the middle here, when you get a certain distance, and you let Photoshop do its magic, its magic is actually quite crap, and it'll desaturate the color quite a lot. So you get this sort of like faded green, gray, white colors, just a sad color that you wouldn't want most of the time. And same thing with the blacks, with the, you know, the darker colors. What it does, the mathematical like algorithm that it uses is just not that great to mix colors. So what you want to do is to actually do it yourself, because it's always going to be a little bit better if you know what you're doing. So first thing, you know, when you pop this new one, is that you try to get the same value as the as what would have been there if you didn't do anything. So, you know, something like that. You know, you look at the gradient. Does it go from, does it have a nice flow from dark to like mid dark to mid gray to mid white to completely white? And then once you're done with that, then you can tweak the color a little bit, and maybe go get some a little bit like richer greens or like earthy tones, something like that. And then we do the same thing here. So again, we match the value, so we go a little bit brighter here. Alright, the gradient looks pretty good, maybe something like that. Okay, and now we can change the color, so we add a little bit more saturation. And you look at the sphere also, right? So you're not only looking at the gradient, look at the actual results on your painting, and see if it mixes well. Sometimes, you know, if you match the value and then tweak the color afterwards, the value will change slightly, or not change, but it won't look as, you know, as intended. So you have to sort of push it in one direction or the other. So something like that. That would be pretty good. And then the white is just a little bit too intense. I'm going to drop it a little bit more, something like that. And then once you're done with that, you can move, you know, the gradients a little bit to see to get a nicer flow between the different colors. Oops. And so yeah, like something like that. It's pretty good. So that would be that. So that would be the first step. So I create something like this. So I have a nice gradient, and if you want to save your gradients, by the way, to reuse them later. So let's say you make like a skin gradient and you want to save it up, you can just go, you know, whatever, new, and then it creates it in here, and then you can actually save this entire bunch of presets, you know, wherever you want, and it'll save your library of gradients if you want. So that's that. And then what I would do when I have, you know, my entire painting filled up with gradients like this, you just sort of merge everything together so that you have like a flat painting, one layer. And then what I would do on top of that is you would go and then select certain parts that you want to fine tune. So, you know, I wouldn't use gradients for all the little details in my scene. I'd use gradients for the bigger parts. So I'd keep it down to maybe like you know, under 10 gradients for an entire painting is probably good enough. Then afterwards, all you got to do is go into more details using, again, the selection tool, and then you can do Control B, so for color balance, and actually use that tool now, because instead of sourcing from you know, just a grayscale, you're sourcing from a bunch of colors, a wide range of colors. So you get much more interesting results. So now you could go like this and tweak it a little bit more. So I'm doing whatever, but you get the idea. Alright, so if I had like a bunch of little details on this object, for example, I could go in here and you know, detail them a little bit. Or if I have like metal, control the saturation, and I say control balance, but you can use any of the other tools, right? Control U for the U in saturation. So basically, you use gradients for the bigger chunks, and then you go into details and tweak the colors further, using still the the selection tool. And then after that, you do whatever you want to your painting, but it should be in very good stage at that point. So now let's get rid of that, and let's actually do it on this thing. Alright guys, as you can see, this is pretty much done now. This is going to be my final gradient map for this painting. I could have had a couple more in the background, but I have a pretty good base already. So where I like to stop is when I have a very good feel for what the look of the painting is going to be like. And then I like to go into into color balancing, and then like hue shifting and all those kind of things, and so add like an extra layer of painting on top of it. But if you're if you're just starting off, that could be a really good start already. Or actually, like I said, you could be almost done at this point. So you would only have some more cleaning up to do, and then some over painting on in a couple areas here and there. But I mean, that would be like a pretty solid coloring if you can actually like do something nice with the gradients. So yeah, that's going to be that. The rest of the painting, I'm gonna post speed paint for the entire thing, so you can see it completed. That's going to be a little bit later. I hope this gradient technique was useful to some of you guys. I know that I use it quite a bit, even though I don't know actually. Just I like it. I like to be able to sort of go back and then be able to tweak the gradients to change my colors. This is also something that we use a lot, you know, in game development. For example, when we do the textures, we'll start with a black and white version, and then we add a bunch of gradients on top of it, and that's, you know, that's what gives us the final results for the textures. And this is great because whenever the art director is not happy with a particular color, we can always go back and change it really quickly by just tweaking the gradients. And so for painting, maybe not quite as relevant, but it's still very useful. I use it a lot. So yeah, I hope some of you guys find this interesting, and I hope you learn a couple things, and I will see you guys next time. All right, bye.